Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who did not join us for this morning, we had our Glaco user group meeting this morning and began our designer cafe. Glaco is the oldest and larger user group for CATIA locally. I'm Paul Soper, the president. I'm also the global automotive program manager from Dassault Systems, the sponsor for this afternoon's event. This afternoon's event is a designer cafe meant to be an interactive event. At the top of every hour, we'll be introducing our series of VIP speakers. But between each speaker and before the top of the hour, we invite you to interface with our designers, some of the best in the business, Dre Clements and Paul O'Donovan. Also, we have major thanks for this entire equation to come about. It wouldn't be possible without Phil Bouchard, who directs our CATIA United States, the Americas team, I think both North and South America. Thank you very much to Phil. Appreciate that. Phil will be our speaker a bit later. Also, we want to give major thanks to those that direct this phenomenal facility here, Lawrence Technological University. We work very closely. Phil and my partner is Keith Nagara, who's the Director of Transportation here. I know he's been running around trying to keep everyone on track and very happy, so an applause to Keith wherever you are. So thanks to Keith Nagara's great connections and phenomenal distribution list, we're able to bring you some VIP speakers. We wanted to start out this afternoon, numero uno, with one of my favorite topics, Ford Mustang. Since I was about that high, I dreamt of driving one when I got my license. It was one of the first vehicles I drove. And our next speaker, curiously enough, was almost born in one, as it was the preferred vehicle to transport his parents to the hospital. I'll let him tell you about that. Our first speaker is the design manager from the Ford Mustang team, Robert Gilardi. After 12 years experience at Ford, he has elevated himself to the design manager for the Mustang team. Some of his favorite projects included the Mustang 2005, 2010 Interior, the 2010 Shelby. I gotta hear stories about that one. The 2011 5.0, the 2012, is it Bass or Boss, excuse me, 302, forgive me, sorry. I can't read my own writing. And the 2013, I gotta see the presentation and learn what's happening about that, of course. And the 2013 Exterior and Boss 302. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Robert Gilardi.
Thank you very much. Set this up here. We're going to start off with a little video. I'll try this at home. Okay, thank you very much for coming today. I'm going to talk a little bit about, as was mentioned before, the design that we've done on the Mustang from 2010 all the way until now. It's been a really big privilege to be able to actually work on such an American icon like the Mustang, and I'm just one member of a really great team, and I'm going to tell you about all the work that we've done. So, when we started working on the 2010 iteration of the Mustang, here, I see some people back there simulating.
You need to make just one adjustment.
One adjustment. Okay, where's the adjustment? All right. How about now? Any better? A lot better. Okay. So when we started working on the 2010, we knew that what the 2005 to 09, what we kind of call the Mark I S197. Was obviously a runaway smash success. And we needed to follow it up with a good sequel. So when we started to approach the exterior, there were a couple of things that we wanted to do. We wanted to take some of the visual weight out of the car. We wanted to have a little bit less of a geometric architecture. We wanted to have more sculptured surface language that was becoming a more modern type of form language. And we always kind of talked about, making it tense and muscular enough so it looked like a runner in a starting block. We got all new body panels, inners and outers. Everything was brand new on the 2010, except for the roof, and that was because we wanted to preserve the glass roof, which was something that we introduced in 2009. And this is probably an obvious thing, but we wanted to reinforce and strengthen the Mustang DNA. We obviously didn't want to take anything away. So here were some of the key sketches that were done for the exterior. And you can kind of see a leaner, more athletic stance, even in these designer sketches. And the one at the upper right kind of really set the direction for the rear end and rear three-quarter of the car. And that was actually done by George Saradakis, who was the designer of the Shelby GR1 concept car, so good friend. And these are two other sketches again. So you can kind of see we brought back the rear haunch. Instead of having a consistent section along the body side, we flared in the wheel lips instead of having an outline. And we paid a lot of attention on how we were going to treat the classic Mustang DNA hockey stick. So instead of it being necessarily an outlined line on the side of the car, kind of flared that into the body. So everything looked like it was, some guy in maybe a too tight t-shirt stepping down the Golden Gate or something. That was kind of what we were going for. So here's some of the clay development. Actually, in the upper right there, you can see Ford design alum and LTU instructor in transportation design, Doug Gafka, putting some tape lines on the car. And we essentially, we had this little courtyard, and we did the whole car pretty much out there. So these are some early clay model sketches. That's actually all clay covered with Dynoc, and putting tape lines on it, adjusting lines and standing back and forth, trying to come up with the perfect line for the car. So you can really see that in a couple of these teaser shots that we had taken, I think we achieved the design objective. You can see the play of light and shadow on the forms, and the way that the reflections, come off of the wheel lips. And we thought these were really two beautiful shots. And so when we just a couple weeks before we launched the car in November of 2008, we kind of let out a few of these little teasers to whet people's appetites. And again, here's the final production car. So same idea. We think we really got something that took a lot of visual weight out of the car, made it look lean, made it look and made it look very, very muscular. And you can also see a couple of the cues that we brought back. Again, rear haunch, the little flared lips at the top of the fenders, and obviously the rear three-quarter window was a big one. This image at the bottom is a good segue to what we're going to talk about next, which is what I spent a lot of time on, which is the interior. So the interior, again, we had some objectives versus the 2005 to 09 car. Again, it was a great success for us. The fact that we had real aluminum action on an instrument panel in today's safety-conscious world, we were able to achieve that was pretty awesome. So, but what we wanted to do is, just like the exterior, where we were moving from a more geometric architecture to a more sculptured architecture, we wanted to have a lot of dramatic shapes. We wanted to have tension to the forms. We wanted to play with light and shadow. And we wanted to do this so that we had a cohesive form language with the exterior. We also knew that we needed to have design leadership in our class for perceived quality, fit and finish, and materials. And another kind of challenge that we took on is, as you professional designers know, and as you students will know as you're in the professional field, there's always a lot of things during the development process that can change your original design intent. And we knew we would run into some of these things, and our challenge to ourselves was whenever we ran into something like that, we'd find a solution that didn't detract from the Mustang DNA. In fact, we tried to find a solution that made it even more Mustang. So here are some of the key sketches. And again, you can see a lot more dramatic form language. You can see a lot more depth to the shapes, and an emphasis to really play with light and shadow, and we really stretch this around the existing package. Again, this was all done over the existing package of the 2005 car, so it's kind of like refacing the kitchen. we got to pull out all the old appliances, we got to, change the faucet, but the plumbing and everything stayed exactly where it was. So we had that constraint to work with as well. And this is kind of what really sold it. This is the first 3D models that we actually did, and this was all done in the studio. So you can really see the comparison of the 2005 car to what we were proposing for the 2010. Again, over the same architecture, a lot more dramatic, a lot more modern. So there's some key final theme sketches as we moved into the Shelby and into doing the final, we would call it, I guess, the hero sketch of the IP console. This is the final theme selection model. This is all done with clay, wrapped with latex, so it looks real even though it's not. The only thing that's not clay are the seats and the ship. Everything else is pretty much been sculpted. I wanted to show this image because a lot of times we tend to look at, when we're developing interiors, we kind of stand straight behind them and we're looking at the lines and we're trying to read it in rear view. And unless you're in a convertible and you're kind of flying overhead or looking down over it, from a balcony, it's often in the real world difficult to see it in that position. So one of the positions we paid a lot of attention to on this car, since it's a driver's car, was the driver position. And if the lines didn't look right in this view, we changed it. So we spent a lot of time actually sitting in the car, taping lines, getting back out, looking at it, readjusting. And this was a very important thing to get the lines to work. And I'll explain a little bit about why that is in a second. So here's the final studio sign-off model. This isn't the production car yet, but it's within millimeters of the production car. And I think you can see as we work through all the feasibility issues, I'll just go back one. From here to here, we were able to retain a lot of the design intent. And one of the things that we did to reinforce the Mustang DNA is you can tell that we have a pretty tall center stack. When we were doing the 2010, it was the first time the Mustang was going to get the new 8-inch screen that would work with all of our sync technology. And that's a lot taller than the one that we had before. But again, we're working with the same architecture. So we had to find a way to get around that. We couldn't actually run, see if this guy works. So we couldn't actually run this aluminum line all the way across like we had done before. So I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And that really presented a challenge to package the air registers and everything that was in the center line of the car with all the ducting. So we're sitting there and we go, well, we've got this shape here, and this is a classic Mustang brow shape. If you don't have that, you probably don't have a Mustang. So what we did is we took it and we actually flipped it upside down, and it gave us this really, really strong graphic that was very unmistakable. So we were able to get around this packaging issue when we originally wanted to take this through by simply taking something that was a strong Mustang hue and using it in a little bit different way. So that was one of these examples of coming up with a solution that makes it more of a Mustang, not less. Here's a little more. We ran into lots of challenges. We were moving from a hard instrument panel to a very soft Sherman test instrument panel, and that brings a lot of manufacturing constraints and requirements that you have to deal with. So we were able to preserve a soft IP all the way around the aluminum finish panels without any cut lines or breaks, and we did that by shaping the aluminum in such a way that we maintained a constant depth all the way underneath the brow. So if you actually look at it and you kind of run your fingers underneath, you'll see that it's a constant depth all the way across. And by doing that, we were able to keep the soft instrument panel without any hard panels. We did a lot of work with our engineering team to make sure that all of the chrome rings that are again a classic Mustang cube were very tight fit, 0.3 millimeter tolerance. We did a lot of work to make sure that the shifter ring that you see on the right-hand side matched that same sort of execution. And it was really the attention to all of these details that I think lifted the Mustang interior up into another class. Again, more and more details. Once we got the basic theme of the instrument panel, the console, and the doors, all squared away. We paid a lot of attention and policed a lot of these details. Everything from the way we were executing the badge and the steering wheel, because that's something you see all the time. It's kind of your John Hancock signature staring you right in the face. To the shifter that was also used in the Taurus, to our lighted sill plates and the horse on the door in upholstered material. But one thing that I'm really proud of is actually the second image from the left. And if you look really close, actually you don't have to, I've got a slide that shows you. You can actually see that, you can't see the hazard button in the middle, it's a little dark, but you can see that the traction control switch is a Mustang. And this is very different to people in the safety office who are used to having what I call a little sombrero car. It's just a little tiny car with little squigglies underneath. And we said, you know what? You know, we're in a Mustang. Why not make it look like a Mustang? And, you know, that's something that presents its own challenges because we have certain regulations and things we have to follow. And we had the support of our chief nameplate engineer, Paul Rando, who's a great supporter of design. And we were able to actually get that in the car, go through all the legal checks. And he turned to me, he says, and Rob, now that we've got the traction control switch looking like a Mustang, I want the trunk release switch to look like a Mustang. So we were able to do that one as well. And the funny thing is these icons are about, you know, about the size of a Tic Tac. And we had them blown up probably about the size of this poster on the easel over here, just to do all the proportion. We just kept scaling them up and scaling them back down. But it was this kind of attention, again, the detail that I think really showed when we got the final production car together. Again, this is the final pre-production model shoot, so you can see all of the play of light and shadow, the way that the rings fit nice and precise and tightly within the aluminum finish panels. The beautiful work that our product design team did on the steering wheel, making sure that everything there looked nice and precise. And one of the things that we focused on was this flow-through console as well. You can see how the armrest on the door and the console actually have the exact same shape to them. So there's a sense of cohesion within the interior. It looks like you know, that one person's vision was carried all the way through, even though it was a team of many people that helped us execute this. Again, I had to include this shot. It's one of my favorite shots. Driver view. Beautiful polished aluminum shift mount. So we moved on to the GT500. And again, same thing, consistent detail execution. From the use of the nomenclature, where the nomenclature is placed, the consistency of the nomenclature, making sure that, I don't have an image of the gauges here, but the font that we used was the same font everywhere, from the side stripe on the outside to the deck lid lettering that says Shelby to the shifter. And we felt that, again, that's another sign to the consumer. And you might not pick it up, but you kind of see all this and you know, wow, they really paid attention. Final production imagery. And GT500. This one goes a little faster than the previous picture. One other thing I wanted to mention is we were also searching for, as I started off when I was talking about the interior, a cohesive relationship between the interior and the exterior. And I sat right across from the exterior team, and we always worked back and forth together. And when we were developing the form language of both, you can actually see some of the same similar shapes. And one of the things that kind of struck us is that we were doing pretty much the same thing with the instrument panel as we were doing with the tail lamps on the rear. So you can see the kick up of the tail lamp into the deck lid, and you can see that matched on the IP. So again, it's a nice cohesion between the inside and the outside. So, launched in 2010, had that out the door, and now it was time to work on the return of the 5.0. So I was, again, lucky enough to be involved in that and to design the underhood appearance. So one of the things we were trying to do is, when you look at some of the cars that are parked outside here, some of the old Mustangs, and you pop the hood and you expect to see, you know, a nice, you know, big air cleaner, carburetor, manifold, you know, 2 valve covers on the sides, and there's a certain architecture that you expect to see for an American V8. And a lot of times you see all of this stuff covered by a big sheet of plastic with a nice, you know, embossed, you know, logo in the middle of it. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to make sure that although we were working with a different, more modern engine architecture, that we could keep the same visual architecture that you would expect to see in an American V8. So this was the key sketch. And then you can see here some of the design modeling that we had done along with the image of the final product. We were actually able to get, I was actually able to get a patent, design patent on this for Ford, since it was such a significant part of the car. And I think we really achieved something that's it's a really beautiful underhood here. It's a lot of people look at top the hoods and say, hey, look at this. One of the other things we did that was really cool was the brace, strut tower brace. Now this you won't see on the car that I brought today, but on all Mustangs with 19-inch wheels, you would get the strut tower brace, and there's a beautiful, that badge in the middle is a real metal aluminum badge. It's not a sticker. It's got 3 different finishes on it. It's all embossed. It's something that's really high quality and very precise looking, and it's actually riveted in with the real rivets. It's not stuck on with tape. So this is the kind of, again, attention to detail that we paid in the design department to all of these items. Okay, now we're going to move on to another video.
We're rebuilding a legend.
This is the first time in 40 years that Ford Motor Company put a boss name on a marquee on Mustang.
We said that we were either going to do the boss right or we weren't going to do it.
This boss, it is going to be the best track Mustang ever.
We're on the good sake. This track is very historic for boss. This is where Charlie Jones actually set the track right back in 1970. The boss of the OG Mustang.
What a special moment to bring back the person who's most identifiable with the boss. And that's the one and only Bernard Jones.
Obviously, it's becoming part of it. I feel like I'm part of Mustang.
Racing is really an extreme durability test.
If you think about racing, racing is sort of the worst part you've ever put for a car.
This is real development that you're in today.
The guy on the street, he gets the best ride, the best performing car because we've literally Parker tested it for a year before he got a chance to take it out on the road.
The boss is probably the most well-known Mustang in Mustang history. This project is bringing it back and bringing it back better and faster than ever.
This car is going to set the standard for Ford.
It's not a compromise. It is exactly what a Boss 302 was and should be, and it's going to perform just like a Boss 302 should.
It's all in.
Boss is the biggest and baddest. It always has been. Which car's out front? I think it will stay there. The boss is back. The boss is back.
So they say they were Laguna Seca, but I think some of that was actually shot in 696. First off, I want to say, hats off to the engineering team that worked on this car. And we worked with a lot of them. This was a really awesome opportunity for me as a designer and for us as a design team. We operated as a fully integrated team. All of those guys that you saw there, I know them all by name. We worked back and forth together, and it was, I gotta say, it's probably one of my favorite projects that I've worked on at my time before. So they were doing all of the wonderful engineering development, and we were trying to figure out what's the best way to represent all of this visually. We knew that we were curators of a really strong legend. We always know that on Mustang, but this was extra special, a little bit more pressure. And we kind of came up with a couple words that we wanted to have our designs live by. We wanted to be authentic, we wanted to be honest, we wanted to be respectful of the heritage, but we also wanted to be relevant, and relevant in a modern way. We simply didn't want to just take and do a sticker car and call it a boss. So here were a few of some of the key sketches that we had done, and a lot of them on racetracks. You see the school bus yellow, and you see a lot of that heritage, coming back. Had put a little helmet sitting beside the car, and we started working on some of the colors that would really show this off. These are some of the key sketches for Laguna Seca, and this is where we really took the opportunity to approach it in a more modern way. If you look at some of the Mustang enthusiasts here will know this probably right off the top of their head. If you look at 69 and 70, when the 2 years that the original boss ran, you could see that there was a distinct difference visually between the cars that were the street cars and the cars that were the track cars. Some of it was subtle, some of it was not so subtle. We decided to be not so subtle. We decided to create something where it would have a lot of visibility on the racetrack. We took it to a track direct from the factory. We knew it. Some people might like it, some people might not like it, but we thought it was the right answer for the car. And so we approached the Laguna Seca in two colors, silver and black, with what we call race red accents. So we had race red wheels that were machined. Everything was, all the graphics were done in red. We had accented red roof, mirror caps, and rear wing. And one of the other things that you'll notice from 69 to 70 is there were actually less stripes or less graphics on the race cars than there were on the street cars. So less pinstriping, nothing on the hood, and so we took that as kind of a cue. And here's some of our 3D development. You'll see some of this, and they're doing a new book on the boss, and so these are some of the images that we showed them as we were doing the development. And we started looking at even though the green is on our new 13, we started looking at the green. We were developing this originally. And one of the things that we did, also because it enabled us to adjust the stripes as we needed as we were designing the car. You can see on that image on the lower right, the side view of the white, you see it actually doesn't say Boss 302 on it. So one of the things we wanted to do is design the thing without writing the word boss on it. And if we could get it to be a boss and not look like it was a simple, somebody bought a new Mustang and stuck C stripes on the side of it, then we knew we were doing the right thing. Again, this is another, I got to play with the engine guys again. This was even better because the actual intake that you see is not a cover of any kind. That is the intake. So we had to work back and forth over many iterations with the engine team to be able to create something. So when they got the proper temperatures, that we didn't have peel off of the silver paint, that they had enough airflow going through it. Because it is a very complicated shape. It's got the Boss lettering on it. It's got the ribbing on it. So that was a pretty fun project to work on and see it all come together. And here's the final one that you can actually see in person outside. Blue valve covers, 4 blue valve covers, and all. And again, we went through the same sort of mantra that we did when we were doing the 2010. Something I call 360-degree detail. So looking at every single part of the car and finding out, where can we make it better? Where can we increase perceived quality? Where can we make it? Where can we reinforce the brand image? So all of these little details, from the way we approach the grow bars and the badging, to the way that we opened up the wheels so you could actually see the brakes, was really important to us. I also worked on, with the structural guys, we were developing the cross brace and the rear seat delete kit, which was really fun. until I had a kid and needed her seat. This was another thing where we were, again, really working hand in hand with the engineers, making sure we got the visual appearance that we were after, but also making sure that they got the functional or functional rigidity, I guess, that they needed by putting this cross brace in the back of the car and reducing weight. Again, gauges, consistency from the way that we approach the special gauges that were going to be specifically lost to these to the gauge package that would come on the Laguna Seca. We did a lot of work to make sure that would be very consistent all throughout the car. And again, nomenclature. We took the powered by Ford that was on the metal covers and put that on the sill plates. We have Boss 302 in the place that God intended, right on the passenger side of the IP, and we repeated some of the same graphics on the classic black cue ball shift knob. So it was fun to go and really dive into each one of these details. It has its own product. So when you look at the final production car for 2012, I think we came up with something pretty exciting. So now we're going to go to another video. Talk about the latest. Some of you have probably already seen this. Here we go. I think it's really cool. One of the successes of Mustang, I think, throughout its entire lifetime is it was. I look back at some of the words and phrases that were used when the car was launched in 64 and a half. It was called the dream car for everyone, and I think that commercial really underscores that. No matter whether it's a V6 with some go-fast parts on it, or a GT, or a Boss, or a super Shelby with 662 horsepower. Now, I can mention that for our later speakers. You can always get it in the flavor that you want, and I just really think that commercial underscores that. It's one of the best ones I've seen. So we're going to do an update to the car. Mustang, the horse is always running on the car, and so are we. We never stand still. So if you look at 64 and a half, 67, 69, 70, they're always moving forward. Continuous improvement of the breed. So 2010 we launched the car. 2011 we gave it 5.0. 2012 the Boss. So now, how do we approach the 2013 and make it even better? So this was this was the content that we were given to work with. This was the scope of the project. So we got new LED headlamps, turn indicators, brand new hood, brand new insulator, new front fascia, new rear fascia, tail lamps, and new wheels. So what you see there in red was where we had the opportunities to make some updates and improve the car. So we started looking at lighting. That was one of our design objectives, to get design leadership in lighting technology. Signature lighting has become a really important design cue over the past 5 years or so. It's really exploded everywhere, from upper end all the way to the lower end. But we wanted to do it again in a way that would reinforce and strengthen Mustang DNA. So we started to look at, again, some of the shapes and form languages that we could take from our family tree, looked at our bloodline, looked at things like the really prominent nose that was on our 68 GT500, GT500 KR, looked at some of the things that Larry Shinoda and those guys did on the 1970, 67 rear end, 69 rear end. Look for ways that we could update and reinforce the brand DNA. So here were some of the key sketches that were done for the 2013. And right away you can see the return of the really strong, what we call the bull horns or the nose. You can point to this guy, right here. And then we really wanted to approach the rear end and get the racetrack back and bring some of the sculpture back to the tail lamps. And here's some of our clay theme development, and you can see right away, directly from the sketches, you can see the signature lamps that kind of echo the 1970s starting to appear here, and you can see this is kind of a mix of, I guess you could say, 67 and 69, where you have black going all the way across, but we retained this negative scoop that you kind of see in the 67 and brought that all the way across, so it was kind of a neat combination of the two. Again, same thing, rear end theme development. And you can see, the big difference, that's really jarred, but you can see the big difference from the rear end design of the 2010 through 2012 to 2013. The other thing that we were able to do by taking a lot of visual weight out of the car above the bumper, by bringing the black all the way across into the deck lid, we were able to change how we approached the lower part and remove some of this black plastic that was down here on the 2010 car and finish a lot of it in body color. So we were able to address some of the issues we had here by approaching the tail lamp design and the executive design in a new way and getting a more consistent racetrack all the way around it. Next, we'll talk about the lights. I like the lights. So here's another little video that's going to do a spin around the car, and you kind of see how there's no sound in this one, but you kind of see how the lights work. So again, you can see the really strong horns coming back. We added functional hood vents on GTs. Sorry, it's so dark. It'll actually be cool. The lights turn on. And again, reapproaching this whole graphic in a different way. We did a really wide license plate pocket to make the car look a little bit wider from the rear. This guy's turned around. Foam the front fascia, and again, you can see this sort of Shelby Cobra look. So those are our signature lights, really strong visual light identifier of the Mustang with standard HIDs. So it gave the front end a much more technical look, a much more modern look. And again, on the rear, this is what the cool part is. Okay, there we go. So when the lights turn on, you get these uninterrupted, classic tri-bar. And it's not just, a bunch of little, dot lights that, look like you bought them from Eco Hardware to put on your Christmas tree. This is a nice, clean neon band that goes all the way around. It's really bright. I actually brought the car home last night, and I was waiting for it to get dark, and I'm sitting out there with the key fob. It was really, really cool. And one of the things is, I kind of didn't pay attention there, but you'll see on the 2013, there's actually no reverse lights. You don't see any reverse lights in the back of the car. And what we were able to do is the center depression on the tri-bar, it actually lights up red when the brake lights and the turn signals, sequential turn signals come on. When you put it in reverse, it's a color-changing LED board, so it flips from red to white. And it's really cool. When we found out we could do that, we're like, oh, this would be cool. Everybody's going to put the car in reverse. And I had actually never seen it before, so I had somebody sit in there and actually do it for me last night. So we really think that the tail lamps in the rear of the car were a nice update and really makes it modern and competitive with all the other lighting technology. Had to put this in here too. We also, the 13 GT500, we had to up the game there too. So I actually didn't work on this, but a good friend of mine and former manager, Keith Rogman, and his team worked on this. And they just really went all out. They've got div plates. They've got, it's actually no grill. It's fully open for cooling. They've got quad exhaust. This car is just absolutely incredible. And if you see one, don't tempt it because it'll bite you. One of these, and yeah, there's actually a car I saw at a Mustang car show one time. It was all resto modded and done out, and it said on the dash, it said, "Buckle up, I want to try something." And that's really what this car is all about. So I'm going to show you one more little video. And this one's going to be loud, so just let you enjoy this for a few minutes. So again, you can see the signature lighting being run all over the box. Really beautiful and very technical, very precise looking. So once again, I told you to take it out a little long, but I was able to now work on the 2013 box. So all of the updates that we did in 2013, Mustang GT, and the Shelby, we also carried through to the Boss 302 and the Boss 302 to the Seiko. What we did on these two is we brought back the school bus yellow, and if there was any issue with the way we approached the Laguna Seca on the 2012s, it was very, very visible on the racetrack. Guess where else was very, very visible? On the street. So you can see a red roof going 100 miles an hour at 696 pretty fast at certain times. So, not that I recommend this, but we did this all black, very sinister looking Laguna Seca, and all the stripes, just like 1969 and 70, are actually reflected. So the one way anybody's going to see it at night is with the lights, and there are lights shining off of the reflective stripes and across the road. And it works really well. It's very simple. You've seen one of these. It's very good. So, one of the other things I wanted to mention, I stated a little bit about this at the beginning, is that I'm just one member of a really, really big team that brings these cars together. And you can see all the way from Jay Mays, who's our global VP of design. We worked with Maury and Peter Burberry when he was at Ford on the 2010. Doug Yapka, who's one of your instructors here, is our chief designer. Daryl Beamer, who took over from him. George, who I worked with on the exterior. Jim and Gary, who I worked with on the interiors. And then there's countless, I could never fit them all here. One of them is actually here, Dave Stoller. Countless talented plane math modelers. These are the people who translate our sketches into reality. And for you students who are here, as you move into the professional world, when you're working on your projects, you're sort of a team of one, and kind of king of the kingdom. And as you move into the professional world, you'll see the amount of people and talent and dedication, and how you have to work back and forth with everybody to really realize something like this. So when everybody else when you're looking at the car that we brought here and the other vehicles that we've done, I'm sure from everywhere else, there's a huge team that has to come together, and the plans have to align really well. And I think that I've been very lucky to have been involved in sort of 5 different iterations and generations of Mustang where that's come together. So hopefully my luck doesn't run out anytime soon, because I hope to keep doing it again. So thank you very much for having me, and if you guys have any questions, I think we have a few minutes.
We do. Questions for Rob? Questions back here? Speak loudly for the video.
On computers, when you were talking be able to build prototypes, or is it so visual and you really need to see it?
Well, what we did is we do an awful lot of benchmarking. What we did is we provided to our, we sat down with our engineering team and with our lighting supplier and gave them an idea of what we were looking for and what we wanted. And it's just a matter of, working through that process and, a little bit of compromise here, a little bit of compromise there, making sure that we were, within the budget, we were on time. And we actually did build prototypes. We actually built, built more prototypes of the tail lamp than we did the headlamp. The headlamp was, I would say, a little bit more straightforward. When you're doing these signature lights and light bars, you see them on just about every car now. You can usually tell that there's a definitive start and a definitive stop. And you can see that even here in this image, even though the turn signals are on here, you can see there's a start and a stop, so it's pretty easy to get light to travel through there. I learned a lot about this when I was working on it. Sounds like a lighting guy now. The issue that we had on the tail lamps again was the fact that we didn't have a start and a stop. It was like a circle. It's a circle, a square, but it didn't have a place for the light to start and a place for the light to stop. So it's a continuous band. And so we actually had to do a lot of prototypes on the tail lamp. We actually had this one little kind of tabletop model. I wish I could find it. I'd love to have it on my desk now. It was just one of those squircles. And when we plugged it in, people went, ooh. And the amount of places that this little thing was carried and reviews and things it went to was absolutely amazing. It was a very, very popular little squircle light up piece. But that's essentially how we approach the lighting design.
Okay.
Additional questions for Rob? Don't be shy. Right here.
The pony, you now put it on the center of the grill. The 64 and a half, of course, it was off to the side. I'm sure that was a conscious decision. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we have so many different variations. We have a lot of we have a California special, and we have V6 performance packages and things like that. We looked at it a bunch of different places. We did about, I'm trying to think, how many iterations of this grill. Do we want crumble around it? Do we want the horse here? Do we want it there? Do we want these circles and things? We decided that that was a pretty strong element, and because of the stripe package on the car, we thought that locating it in the center made sense, and we decided to actually move it off to the side for the California special. So that's kind of how that was done.
Has the pony itself evolved or not? I can't remember.
The pony evolved in 2010. 2010, just like the exterior, we did a new, more muscular, athletic pony. And this one, I'm trying to, it actually escapes me if that made it to the tri-bar or not. I think it did. But yeah, that's been the same pony since 2010.
One more question for Rob? No more?
Okay, all right.
All right, doesn't get more inspirational than that. The world-class Ford